Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com, and in this video I'm going to share with you my workflow on balancing out my drums while in the creative process. Now sometimes what I'd like to do is just load up a drum kit and not have to worry about separating the kick, the snare, the hi-hat. I like having all the instruments in one drum kit because sometimes just accessing that drum kit and triggering it can really just start my inspiration and start hitting the ground running with some ideas for a beat. So I have a drum kit here loaded with some sounds. And oftentimes I'll just start tinkering around and working on a beat. And then once I have a beat programmed and sequenced, I can go ahead and start layering that with loops or more multiple drum racks and things like that. But as I go along through this production process, sometimes I don't like to stumble and having to, okay, I'm going to separate the kick, I'm going to separate the snare, and then I'll do that down the road once I have the idea laid down. And that's at the most important part. Once I have the idea and the beat laid down, it's as easy as just extracting those individual hits and then grouping them together in a drum group. So let me show you that process. So here is a drum that I've programmed. So that's the beat, that's where I started with, and then I went ahead and layered that with another drum rack, and that would be this one here. And this is just to purposely just to beef them up. Haven't really EQ'd anything or anything, just played the beat, layered it with another drum rack. And so this, as you can see, just has a kick and another hit here. Now, once I've gotten those two in place, I just browsed around to find add some texture to these drums. So I found a loop, and so here's the loop that I have. Let's just solo that. Now, what I've done to this loop is I've actually set in Ableton Live the different warping modes from beats to repitch. Here it is at beats, and I've just transposed it 9 semitones down, but so it had both the rhythm and I actually played it twice as slow. So here's a so drop that loop in here, and what I've done was I hit the ×2 button, so I played it twice as slow, and I took it off beats mode and entered repitch. And that's just to give more texture along with the first two initial drum racks that we have. And then we just have a ride cymbal, and sometimes that might happen. Instead of just using a cymbal or a hit within the drum rack, I might just import an actual sample. So this is more of a hybrid workflow where, as I'm going along and my creative juices are flowing, I don't necessarily will drag and drop this into a drum rack. I'm like, let me just add a ride, and I'll put that on an audio track, as you can see here. Now it comes time to, while I've got this in place, then I go ahead and start to just work on the other elements in for the idea. So I'll have like maybe the synth, the bass, and start building from there.
I can't help myself.
So when it comes to getting the balance right with the drums, once I've gotten the idea down, I don't want to slow my workflow down by having to nitpick all the little details. I can kind of just hit the ground running, get the beat laid down in place, and then I can go ahead and add some effects, processing, and things like that. But for the most part, now I want to balance them out and have a little bit more control when it comes to the mixing process. Once I have, the synths, bass, maybe even some vocal ideas and things like that. So what I'll do is I'll double click within this drum rack. You can expand it so that you can see all the individual hits or sounds within that drum rack. So let's just solo that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extract the kick and the snare from this drum rack. That way I can separate them, and I'll leave the toms that are in this drum rack alone. So in order to do that, let's just for the sake of I like kind of being somewhat organized in my mixing process, here's the kick here, so I'll just color that blue, and here's the snare, so I'll color that yellow. So now once I have my kick and snare together, I'm simply going to right click on the kick and hit extract chains. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep all the MIDI programming even the way it is in the arrangement window, as you can see here. And it just takes it out of the drum rack so I can have an individual perspective and just separate that kick from the rest of the drum rack if I wanted to. So now I can right click here and hit kick, and I'll go ahead and leave that there for now. And I'll do the same process for the snare drum. I'm going to right click there, extract chains. So now within this drum rack, we only hear those two toms. So now I'm going to just call this drum rack toms and leave it the way it is. And I've got my kick and my snare now separated away from that initial drum rack loaded with all the sounds. So let's go ahead and just move them all together. So I'm going to drag them over to the left side. And now we have, I'll repeat the same process maybe for the big kick and snare that I added, the second drum layer to this, which is right here. So let's go ahead and solo that. So I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, extract chains. And now here's that separated kick. So I'll go over here and say big kick. And since I only have the snare or the snare hit here, I can go ahead and leave this alone and put snare 2. So now I can move my big kick next to that first kick. So I have both of them in the same place, and the same thing with the snares. So we have the first initial kick, my big kick, snare, the second snare, and so on. Now once I've gotten everything in place, because now I've also included, remember, the loop and that ride symbol, I'm going to just highlight all of them and just simply hit Command G to group them all together within their own drum bus. And we can go ahead and call this all drums. And there you go. So now all the drums are living together in this group, which kind of makes it easier now to clean up your arrangement window, because when you expand it here in the arrangement window, you can see all the drums. And because we've extracted them, now you have the kick individual performance here. You'll have the other big kick individual performance, and so on and so on. Here's now the snare and things like that. So when I double click this, I'm only seeing the pattern down here of the kick. And it's basically a drum rack just with that kick loaded in there. Now, when I arrive at this stage of extracting kicks, snares, and individual hits from a drum rack, I'm usually at the point where I've already laid out the foundation of the idea, the bass line, synth progression, even sometimes a full-out arrangement. And I start doing this maybe just to get a better balance of the drums if I need to. I don't necessarily do this all the time, because sometimes I might just be using one drum rack and I can set the balance within that drum rack as well. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the thing. It's all about, does it feel good? Does it sound good at where you're currently at? So I'm not just, well, now I have to extract the kick or extract the snare because that's the right thing to do. No, I mean, if it's sounding good and it's getting the vibe across, then there it is. But I'm just sharing this with you so that you might want to use this into your current workflow. So I just assign all the tracks in there to have the same color as the group track. And now that I have all the individual kicks and snares and things like that extracted, I can go ahead and give myself a balance overall. And that's where I'll go in here and set the balance and just kind of blend all the drums together. So with the drum group now soloed, I can individually introduce some of the elements and just get the balance right. So let's solo the kick. Now I've got this top kick here. I'm sending a little bit of that kick to a delay that I have on an aux return track. And this is a plugin called Repeater. But you can use any delay for that matter. I'm just giving a small little slapback delay, a quick delay, so that it gives more stereo imaging and just some more depth. I like doing that a lot to my drums. I'll usually use like an element, not the big kick, because that's more on the bottom end and the bottom beef of this. So I'm just doing it to this more mid-range, top-heavy kick. And then I'll do the same thing with the snare as well. And let's go ahead and incorporate the other snare. And we start just incorporating all the other elements in. Basically just getting the blend and balance. There's like, hey, I want more toms, or I want the snare to punch a little bit more, to come out a little more. And sometimes that's just giving it a little bit boost of volume and some energy. And then I can go in the drum group as well and add some processing to kind of glue them all together. So I'm using the stelae digital virtual mix bus plugin, and here I have just a mix bus on the drums, and running it through like a Neve emulation, and using the T-Rex EQ73 plugin just to do a little bit of EQing, and the T-Rex Dynamo. So adding some compression to this. Let's go ahead and turn these off and see what they sound like. So now that I've gotten everything sitting well, I have now a little bit more control over the balance of the drums, because I was able to extract the initial drum beat idea. I took the kick and the snare out of this initial drum kit that I loaded up, and then I went ahead and brought that into a drum group, so I had a more better balance. And sometimes that's what I like to do. So instead of just importing a kick, creating the pattern for that kick, and then importing a snare and creating the pattern for that snare, I have them all living together in one drum rack. So they're all loaded on here. That way, when sequencing and actually creating a rhythm, whether I'm step sequencing it or playing it on the fly, I have all the elements that I want to use. And you can see that here. I've got them all sitting in one place, and I can write my drum pattern there. And then if I want to just extract that snare or that kick drum or that hi-hat or a specific type of sound, I'll go ahead and follow the same steps that I shared with you earlier. Extract that and then incorporate all of them into a drum group. That way I can have loops that I'm incorporating, as well as maybe some other audio that I'm incorporating into that. Once they're all here, I can then go ahead and balance it out with the rest of the track. Well, I hope this video has been helpful and encouraging in any way. And as a gift for watching this video, I'd love to send you some drums. As a matter of fact, I've put together a sample pack loaded with construction kits, loops, one-shots, transition effects that you can use in any DAW. Just simply click, drag and drop, and you're ready to go. They're 100% royalty free, so feel free to use them in your projects and share that music with the rest of the world. Just simply click the download link below to download this sample pack, 100% free. Or visit www.beatacademy.com/pack and download your sample pack today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.